Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good day. Are you able to hear me and see my screen? Thank you. Give me 1 minute. Let me open my PowerPoint. Welcome to my live market meeting, 27th March 2020. I am Sagar Nandi. I used to work in information technology. I retired several years ago. I used to work mostly in Singapore. Nowadays, I am living in Thailand and swing trading stocks using the Q systems and techniques that I will demonstrate today also. You may watch these and other videos on my YouTube channel Trading Profitably and contact me using my email ID tradingprofitably@gmail.com. I regularly share stock and market analysis using live data on my traders forum sagarnandi.com and also on my Twitter handle sagarnandi. All these resources are open to the public and you are most welcome to make use of them. Disclaimer: this demonstration is for educational purposes only. It is designed to share information on the systems and techniques I use. The information presented here should only be used by people who are aware of the risk inherent in trading. Past performance is no guarantee of future return. I am not an investment advisor. This session is not for any recommendation of buying or selling stock or any other instrument. I will have no liability for any investment decision made by the audience. I will look at the market using the Q systems and explain how I use the tools to identify trading opportunities. What are the systems that I will use? I use the technical trading system, either Q Elite based on TradeStation or Q Global based on MetaStock. I look at sector industry rotation analysis in real time using Q Edge. Before buying or shorting a stock, I always like to carry out a fundamental and peer analysis so that I buy the strongest stock in a peer group or short the weakest stock, not only in terms of technicals but also in terms of fundamentals. I can carry that out in real time using Q Vital, and I look at the global market using Q Index. I will try to use all these systems today. I am not a big fan of PowerPoint. That was my last slide. I'll now continue with the live system. Let's look at the global markets first. Not the stock. Let's start with Australian market. The index is AXJO. In the weekly chart, after displaying the bearish headwind, it fell sharply. Today is already Friday. Market is closed for Australian market. The weekly has an indecisive shape candle. At this time, we are not going to look for any trade, neither buy nor short. If we look at the thrust and jump indicators, they were at an extreme and they tilted up little bit. We can know that from the color change. There is a possibility that price will go up from such extreme oversold states. However, we will not try to buy AXJO unless there is a confirmed trade setup. The daily has also loaded now. It went down sharply, tried to recover, and then went down again. There is no uptrend, therefore we cannot apply the go with flow trend following trade setup, and none of the reversal trade setups are also applicable. How can we find the trade setups? If you look at my traders forum sagarnandi.com, there is a group called trade setup checklist. Here I have posted the checklist for the 4 different trade setups that I use. Those are box setup for sideways market or for double top double bottom, bounce setup for exhausting market, headwind setup for trend reversal trades, and go with flow for the trend following trades. Currently the market is exhausted a lot, so I may look for buying opportunities using either bounce, headwind, or box setup. Is box setup applicable? If you use the daily chart, most of the stocks are not at a double top double bottom, they are not inside a box. However, if you use weekly chart, some of the stocks may be at double bottom, so you may look to apply box setup keeping that in mind. Go with flow, long setups are extremely unlikely now. Bounce setups are possible. A stock may be bouncing up from daily memory support, which may be unlikely because most stocks has dropped a lot. However, some of them may be at weekly memory support. You may keep that in mind. And some headwind long setups may come. I shared one such idea a few days ago. Why don't we look at that? If we go back to the traders forum, there are several categories. However, not all categories are visible until I log in. So let me log in. And once I log in and go back to the forum, there is a category for 360 degrees stock analysis. This is where I regularly share live market and stock analysis. Let me look at this one, a breakout and a headwind long setup. I mentioned that headwind trade setup may be coming now, and this is one that I found 3 days ago. I shared it on 24th of March. As usual, I attached the live snapshots of Q systems. Let's look at them. In the weekly chart, again after displaying the bearish headwind, Bank of America fell sharply. The thrust and jump indicators both were extremely oversold even in the weekly chart, and when I posted it, they started to tilt up. We can see that from the color change of the dots. At that time in the weekly, we had extreme bullish pressure, the upper cross, and also extreme bullish pressure U-turn. U-turn meaning it had extreme bearish pressure just a while ago, and now it turned to bullish pressure, resulting in a U-turn. That is the lower cross. Those were bullish signs at an extremely low price level. And what about the candle itself? The weekly candle backdrop color was still bearish magenta, however the shape was bullish. Headwind setup has certain requirements using the unambiguous checklist, and it has one requirement on the weekly candle. That is either it has to be neutral color yellow, or it has to be with a bullish shape. Because the condition is odd, that condition was met on the weekly chart. It had a bullish shape candle. What about the daily chart? In daily chart, there were successive bullish headwind signals, 3 of them. However, there was a memory resistance nearby. Therefore, when this headwind came or this headwind came, we were not going to try to take a long trade. However, at the right edge, when the last bullish headwind appeared, it broke out of the memory resistance and the candle color also turned bullish green. That was accompanied by extreme bullish pressure, and we also had the bull release signal, meaning it was oversold just a day ago, and now that oversold condition went away using the stretch indicator. It gave us a headwind long trade setup on this day, and it also gave us a breakout trade setup. If you follow my trades, you know I am not a big fan of breakout trades unless they give me a low risk entry opportunity, and in this case the breakout gave me a low risk entry opportunity. That's why I mentioned that on that day, 24th March, I shared this just before market close. I shared it on Twitter, 3:57 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It gave a headwind long trade setup as well as a breakout trade setup. And I could catch the stock at the very bottom. Would I know if the trade was going to make profit? No, but because the stop loss was narrow, I was happy to share the idea. This is a view of the same stock using Q Global now after market close. The Twitter post was about 3 minutes before market close, and this is after market close, and you can see the exact same signals are available in Q Global also. The jump and thrust at the top, jump at the bottom, the pressure indicators, the headwind indicators. You could identify the trade either using Q Global or using Q Elite. How were the fundamentals? On that day, first of all, the price movement was big, 16% plus up on that day. And in the peer group, this is a snapshot from Q Vital. In the peer group, 51 stocks were there and all of them were up. Valuation wise, it was medium, yellow, neither undervalued nor overvalued, and it had positive and accelerating earnings growth. In the latest quarter, over last 3 yearly periods, it had positive earnings growth. Fundamentally, it was looking okay to take a long trade in terms of increasing and accelerating earnings growth in the latest quarter. In terms of industry, it was very strong. On that day, the industry diversified banks was up by more than 13%. That completed my 360 degrees analysis, and I thought that it was looking good to take a low risk long entry using the headwind reversal trade setup or a breakout long trade setup. Let's look at Bank of America today, how it worked out. And I'm now switching to TradeStation Q Elite. I could use Q Global on Metastock also. I'll keep switching between them. We can see that since I shared the trade idea, price has gone up. The weekly backdrop candle color was magenta at that time. Now it has turned yellow. In the daily, I shared the long idea on that day. Since then, price has gone up for 2 days. The backdrop candle color changed to neutral, and the daily candle color that was already green, it gave a cyan color candle yesterday. So far it is going up. We will see how it plays out. Using the swing trading technique, the stop would be just below recent low. Exactly where I can use the hotkeys in Q Elite to decide that. I change the template to stop level template using the Q protection signal, the dots. The magenta dots are to be used for long position. Our entry was at the close of this day. If you were using real-time charts, you could probably take an entry earlier If you are using daily charts, you would enter at the close of the day. We wouldn't wait for next day's opening, and the stop is to be just below the recent low. In this case, using the volatility calculation, the Q protection signal below recent low is quite a distance away. You may then not take a stop so far away, but put it somewhere below the magenta candle. You may put it somewhere here. This should be the risk distance, and you could decide position size based on that. If price can come to this high, this yellow candle's high, then the reward distance will be about the same as the risk distance, and that would be a natural initial profit target. That was a trade setup that I shared using live analysis, and I came here from the different trade setups that I was explaining, the trade setups that you can apply using unambiguous checklists. And I came to the trade setups from an analysis of the Australian market index, mentioning that when market has dropped so much, and it is true not only for Australian market, for many other markets, we are unlikely to have attractive trend following go with flow setups. Is that a true statement that not only Australia market dropped? Certainly. Let's look at few other markets. CSI 300 for the China market. This has remained relatively stable. There may be many hypotheses why it has remained stable throughout this coronavirus epidemic, but we don't need to go into the hypothesis, just to see that it is remaining inside a range from well before the coronavirus pandemic. It is still remaining inside that range. Daily chart is taking time to load, no issue. Let me switch to Hong Kong market. Here also price dropped a lot, both in the weekly and daily. In daily it recovered somewhat, but there is no Q trade setup right now. The weekly backdrop color is remaining magenta. Therefore, if price goes down now in the daily chart and gives us a magenta color candle, that may give a trend following go with flow short trade setup opportunity. And if that happens, you may trade Hang Seng Index or a market ETF. I don't know if it is there in the Hong Kong market, but if Hang Seng Index gives trend following short trade setup, that will be the good time to look for trend following short setups in individual stocks. That way you will be aligning the trade setups at the market level and the individual stocks level. Those tend to be even higher probability trades. Let's look at the India market. Similar pattern. In the weekly it dropped a lot, tried to recover a little bit. It's taking a while. Okay, now it has drawn the charts. It dropped a lot in the weekly chart. This week it tried to recover a little bit, but the candle shape is indecisive, both with upper and lower tails. In the daily, after the sharp drop, it recovered somewhat. That is normal. That didn't change the trend to uptrend. The weekly backdrop color is again magenta. If it drops from here, that should give shorting opportunities using the go with flow trend following short trade setup. Let's look at the UK market. Almost same picture, dropped a lot, indecisive shape candle in the weekly chart. Interestingly, the recovery in the daily happened right after the bullish headwind signal. How could we use it? there was probably no headwind long trade setup, but what I always say, if the reversal signal comes, I'm always careful. So if I had a short trade setup, I would protect profit using trailing stop. That will be pretty useful. And now if it goes down, gives a magenta color candle, and if the daily also gives magenta candle, that will give new shorting opportunity. When I looked at this global markets, there are not many buying opportunities using trend following trade setups. I could find a few trades like Bank of America and maybe few others with reversal trade setups. That is also showing that it is not the best time to take many trades. Though I am sharing few buying opportunities ideas on my forum, you may keep the overall market backdrop in mind and always maintain position sizing. What I am doing, if usually I was risking 1% of my account in each trade, now I have reduced that to 0.5%. And if I take a trade, for example, Bank of America, and that goes into loss, I will not mind further reducing my position size to be maybe 0.25 of my account size. I may still take a few trades both in long and short direction, but when my trades are stopping out, instead of doubling down, instead of increasing position size, I decrease position size. That helps a lot. That means when I am making consistent profit, my position size is higher. When I am making consistent losses, my position size is lower. That makes a lot of difference in the long run. On the other hand, if your trades are getting stopped out and you keep on increasing your size, that is going to harm your account in the long term. That's not the Q way of trading. Let's look at few other ideas that I shared in the forum with that position sizing thought in mind. I shared them yesterday. This was one stock that I looked at, shared it yesterday just before market close, 17 hours ago, Avid. And these are the snapshots. The industry, technology, hardware, storage, and peripherals was very strong. You can see 141 industries were up yesterday, 7 were down, and this industry ranked 143, one of the strongest, and it accelerated as well. One easy way to know whether it is one of the strongest or not, whether it is one of the most accelerating or not, is to look at the case. If it is in bold case, you know it is among the top 20%, or it may be bottom 20% if it is magenta color, in this case cyan color. So you knew this industry was one of the strongest from the cyan bold score and also one of the most accelerating industries. That's a good time to look for buying opportunities in individual stocks in the industry. And I found this stock, Avid Technology. Symbol was Avid. When I shared it, it was up by more than 15%. Very high percentage gain. In terms of valuation, it was not so great. It was overvalued, in fact. Earnings growth also, and I highlighted that in the forum post, was not looking good if you look at the quarterly periods. Though if you look at little bit more carefully, you can see from the previous quarter to the last quarter, earnings growth improved. And if you are observing the market for a while, you would know that stocks don't wait for great earnings growth to come in. Most of the time it starts to go up in anticipation. And one way to anticipate is to see, even if the earnings growth is negative, is it improving? And here we can see significant improvement from minus 28% to minus 3%. So in a way, you can say that that is also bullish as far as earnings growth is concerned. And if you look at the annual periods, it had robust earnings growth in the last annual period, and that was much better than the previous earnings growth. That is the 2-year compound aggregate earning growth was lower than 1-year compound aggregate earnings growth. So there were some positive signals in the earnings growth that could be taken as a reason to buy the stock, and it had a short squeeze potential. And finally, I don't buy a stock unless the stock is actually going up, and in this case the stock came to a memory support and also watermark pivot support. I mentioned earlier that in this market you may not have many stocks at a daily support level, but you may find stocks at weekly support level, and this was one such stock, Avid. It bounced precisely from the weekly memory and also the weekly watermark support, displayed the bull release signal, went up with extreme bullish pressure, a very bullish shaped candle, and the backdrop color flipped from magenta to cyan, didn't go through yellow. When the changes are happening gradually, you will see the magenta color changes to yellow first, then to cyan, and sharp reversals tend to flip the color from magenta to cyan. In the daily chart, it displayed a bullish headwind signal. After that, it tried to go up, and finally yesterday it broke out of the memory resistance. So I titled this post as a stock that is at memory support in weekly and breaking out of memory resistance in daily. You could take it as a breakout trade setup because the breakout happened with extreme bullish pressure as well. Another trade idea that I shared yesterday, let's look at all the posts in the 360 degrees analysis category on SINA, SYNA, undervalued stock pulling back to support. This is not one of the Q trade setups, however, this is also a viable technique looking for stocks that are in an uptrend and pull back to support and go up. And I know many great traders who use it successfully. I sometimes use it, though Q Systems doesn't have an unambiguous checklist for this setup. I thought it is worth noting this stock also. In the weekly chart, though the market dropped a lot, this stock is still in an uptrend. It still has higher high and higher low. This week, as of yesterday, it went above the yellow direction line with a bullish shape candle. Now remember, this technique is to look for stocks that pull back to support in an uptrend. There we may not expect the candle color in weekly chart to turn to cyan. It is okay to try to buy the stock even when the backdrop color is magenta, because we are looking for a deeper pullback than is common for the go with flow trend following long trade setup. Why? Because in a go with flow trend following long trade setup, we are looking at the daily chart. Let me try to illustrate using this daily chart. Every daily chart has these upper and lower boundary lines. The go with flow trade setup is trying to look for stocks that pull back in an uptrend in the daily chart and trying to go up. So those opportunities will come somewhere in the middle of the two boundary lines. But in the current market, where the market has dropped a lot, we are trying to find stocks that have found support, and in this case weekly. So in the daily, the stock is expected to be in the lower half of the boundary level. Those will not give, unlikely to give cyan color candle in the weekly chart, which is a requirement of the go with flow long trade setup. That is why if you are looking for a stock, it has to be strong stock. We'll look at its fundamentals later. Strong stock in an uptrend, which is true in weekly, pull back to support, which is true in weekly, the yellow direction line, and going up, then we may not be able to apply the go with flow long trade setup checklist. In the daily, it dropped a lot, went below the lower boundary level quite a lot. Then on this candle, it regained the white direction line, and that was with extreme bullish pressure. At that point, exactly at that point, the thrust and jump indicator started to tilt up. And as of yesterday, it gave a cyan color candle. Cyan color candle tends to give an optimal buying point. In this case, if you bought the stock, you would put the stop probably not using the recent low. That may be a bit far away. Instead, you may apply the Q protection signal and put the stop here. Because if this support in daily, if this support in weekly is broken, then your reason for buying the stock may be invalidated. Therefore, you may put a stop just below this yellow candle, but you may use the Q protection signal that will keep you safe distance away. This is how the technicals were looking, and I explained that this is not a Q trade setup, but this is a stock in uptrend pulling back to support kind of technique, and that is applicable only if the fundamentals are strong. In this case, it is strong in terms of valuation, and I like this kind of stocks where the stock is undervalued plus it is having positive as well as accelerating earnings growth. Those tend to give the best trading opportunities. It is undervalued, so there are groups of traders who will like to buy it. It has accelerating earnings growth, therefore there are other groups of traders who will like to buy it. And technically we saw there are third group of traders who will like to buy it based on it regaining the support. What about its industry? You could think of this stock belonging to semiconductor industry or hardware industry. Why did I say that? Let's look at the vital statistics again. Now these companies may be engaging in multiple kinds of activities. So you can see this is classified as a semiconductors industry and also as a hardware industry stock. Therefore, instead of just looking at semiconductors or just looking at hardwares, in this case I decided to look at both those industry groups, and using Q edge I could look at both the industry groups. Both of them were up a lot yesterday. So that gave me a reason at the industry level to consider buying the stock. Industry level gave me reason to buy the stock. Fundamentals level gave me reason to buy the stock. Technical level, it gave me a reason to buy the stock as a pullback to support in an uptrend kind of technique. That completed my 360 degrees analysis, and I decided to share that analysis also. This is how, whatever be the market condition, you can apply objective, unbiased, unambiguous techniques to identify buying opportunities. Because the market is not very strong overall, you may always keep position sizing in mind. That was yesterday. Let's look at the market today. Let's look at the futures. Overnight market is on. We may not decide our trades based on overnight market, but let's look at them. This is S&P 500 futures E-mini. In the weekly chart, last week it broke below this memory support lines in the weekly. This week it went above the memory support yesterday, but now it pulled back a little bit. We'll have to see if today, that is Friday, it can close above the memory support lines. If it can regain the memory support in the weekly, which is coming from far away, those tend to provide robust support. If it can regain the memory support line, that will be proven bullish. Whereas if it closes below both the memory support lines, that will be proven for the time being bearish, giving rise to what some may call as a dead cat bounce. We'll see how it plays out. Let's look at Nasdaq. In the last weekly market roundup video, I mentioned there were only few bullish indications. One was that the Nasdaq E-mini futures NQ was still holding the weekly memory support, and that is still holding. You can see not only my meta stock is slow, my trace station is also slow, but it's okay. We looked at the weekly. Daily is also there now. Daily maintained this memory support, and now it broke out of the memory resistance. We'll see if it closes above this memory resistance today. If so, that will be proven as bullish. Let's look at Russell futures RTY. In the weekly market roundup, I also mentioned about the bullish headwind appearing in RTY, meaning if I had a short trade in Russell 2000 or maybe small cap stocks, I would be careful and protect my profit using trailing stop. That would be a good idea because it recovered somewhat. There is no trade setup here. There is no major support in the weekly or daily that we can see if it is holding or not. And last market future we may look at is YM Dow futures. Here also price dropped a lot, tried to recover somewhat, but there is no trade signal here. There is no major support in weekly or daily that we can look at. Overall, the market is looking weak. It rallied somewhat from the lows, but that is not a lot. And this picture is playing out across the stocks. Let's look at QH now. Here I can look at all the sectors and industries and stocks, lots of stocks in real time. Yesterday, all the industries were up, and by significant percentages. Financials more than 10%, industrials about 7%, infotech 6.7%, real estate also 6.3%. That was bullish. But notice one thing. Let's go to the industry tab and let's look at the strongest industries. Let's look at the top 10 industries yesterday. They are in financial sector, industrial, financial, infotech, consumer staples, industrial, energy, consumer discretionary, real estate. If you look at the actual names of the industries, this is rates related to thrift and mortgage finance, etc. So they are in diverse industries. We don't see any particular industry to be more dominant than others. Now, if I wanted to look into the underlying stocks, I could click this button. All the industries that are highlighted, by clicking this multiple check button, I can go to the stocks of those 10 industries. Which industries I selected? The best performing industries yesterday. These are all the stocks in QH from those top 10 best performing industries. Let's look at the stocks that were performing best yesterday. Some stock went up a lot, right? 202%. GPMT. So what I may do, if I'm using Q Global, I may close all charts, come back to QH, and I can put my cursor anywhere on the stock row and open the chart. It is going to open it using the default template that I have defined. If I am using Q Elite, what I will do, I will come to dashboard and first choose my technical trading system as Q Elite from this drop box. If I choose Q Elite, when I go to the stock tab, and let me not choose only one stock, let me choose, let's say, top 10 stocks here. By that button, let's choose stocks that went up by more than 20%. Now if I click the chart button, it will not open the charts in MetaStock, but it will copy the symbols for pasting in TradeStation Radar, and I can come back to Radar and paste them, and let's sort them by percentage gain yesterday, and GPMT comes first. Let's look at the chart. It went up a lot yesterday, but does it mean it is a buying opportunity? No. Why? Let's see from the top how much it dropped to the bottom, and if you look at the third number from the bottom in the pop-up dialog, it is down by 89%, almost 90% from this peak. And from there it did go up. How much did it go up from the low? Let's see. If I assume the closing price yesterday and click that again, it went up by 158% from the low. But see how much it is down from the tops in spite of that huge move. I'm drawing another line again, and if you see the third number from the bottom in the pop-up dialog, it is still down 63% from the top. That doesn't look like a strong stock. When a stock has dropped a lot, it goes up rapidly, as in this case it seems to be more because of short covering, not because the stock is fundamentally strong, because it is still down a huge percentage from the top. Strong stocks are not down like that. Let's look at the second stock and you will see a pattern. The stocks that rallied, meaning the stocks that resulted in the market to go up, are not looking like strong stocks. IVR, same thing. It went up a lot yesterday, 66% we can see here. But look at the chart, it is still down a lot. How much it is down? For one more case, let me try to draw the line in trade station. It is still down 74% from the top. Who will consider this as a strong stock? Let me flip through the other charts. Again, hugely down from the top, doesn't look like a strong stock. That was RC. Now RWT again, in spite of going up by 60% yesterday, doesn't look like a strong stock. NYMT, same thing. TGI, same. CMO, no different. ARR, no different. DFIN, and let me scroll down to the last one, PBF. None of them are looking strong. The other thing is, when I take a trade, I apply the unambiguous checklists and look for a proper trade setup. None of these stocks gave a valid buy setup yesterday. I shared two stocks that gave a valid buy setup. One was Sina, pullback to support, and another one was, what was the other one? I forgot. Sina and Avid. Those gave proper trade setup, but these stocks, which are the best performing stocks yesterday, didn't give a valid trade setup. That doesn't say that the market is going up because strong stocks are going up. Or in other words, market may be going up, but that is not giving us many buying opportunities. That means it is time to be cautious still. Now market is down a lot. I found the stock Avid that was at memory support in the weekly chart. Let me plot again. Avid in QLED, it was at memory support. So what we may do is look for stocks that are at memory support in the weekly chart. We could run the scans in TradeStation as well as MetaStock, but MetaStock, in terms of using the scan feature, sometimes it is easier. So let me use Q Global on MetaStock, looking for stocks at memory support, memory trendline support. And MetaStock allows to quickly switch the interval to weekly, and I can run it on I don't want to run it on a very big list, but I'm demonstrating it. Let me run it on this stock list. It has 196 stocks. because I didn't download anything. It is going to retrieve the data from Zenith. So it is looking for stocks that are at memory support in the weekly chart, going through the 196 stocks to look for any such setup. Let it run for a few more minutes. Should be over in a few more seconds maybe. If you downloaded the data and ran it in offline mode, it would be finished in 5-10 seconds. It did give me a list of symbols that are at memory support. So I could now open the stocks by highlighting one or multiple of them using control click to select particular stocks, or I could press shift click to select a number of them, or I could press Ctrl A to select all of them. When there are many stocks, instead of opening them together, that will overwhelm my computer, I like to save them in a list. And now the latest version of Metastock has the code center, so I could open them in code center and save as, let's give the date 26th March at weekly memory support. We can save the list. Now we could look at the stocks from this list to see their price performance, but I don't need that. What I want to do is look at the stocks using the default at a glance template. So I choose the first stock, use my default template weekly daily and open it. It has opened ABBV. If you are looking to buy a stock that was up significantly from a price level, and you can see this memory support is coming from far away, those tend to provide robust support. It went up a lot from that price level, decline, hit the memory support precisely, went up from there, also hit the watermark pivot support and went up from there. If you were running this scan every day, you could catch the stock right on this day when it bounced up from the memory support and closed above that. Because the traffic light candle color, the daily color was still red, you might not buy at the close of that day. You could wait next day and you could take the trade on this candle using early range breakout technique. As you can see, there was an upper tail, so if you applied the early range breakout technique, you would get a fill and you would still be in the trend. This technique allows you to find robust stocks that pull back to support, which are very significant weekly memory support. Before considering buying at the memory support, we would always like to carry out a fundamental analysis, peer analysis. So I will switch to Q Vital, use ABBV as my root stock, and by default I keep my peer relationship same or similar industries. It's going to retrieve information about the stock first. It makes money, earnings per share is positive, has a dividend also, not bad, 6.39%. Next earnings date 23rd April. Some information about what the stock does. You all know about the stock FB. It has brought all the peer stocks in the second step, and in the third step it has got data about all these 91 peer stocks, and now it is calculating and updating the vital statistics. Once that is done, these snapshot fields will be filled up. Give it a few more seconds. It has filled up. And indeed, by the way, I never prepare for this session, so I'm finding out along with you. This has great valuation, both in terms of valuation and secondary. One of the strongest stocks in terms of valuation. And what I like to see, I showed you another stock also where it had great valuation and nice earnings growth. That is true in this case also. All the three quarterly periods earnings growth is positive. All the three previous yearly periods also earnings growth is positive. Revenue is also looking okay. Robust earnings quality. So this is fundamentally very strong. So we found a stock using a simple scan where a stock came back to a robust support, now going up, and it is fundamentally strong. We could look at the stocks industry also. If I am carrying out the fundamental analysis from here, I could click the cog icon to check the industry, biotech industry, how it is doing. And you could see here it can be categorized as either biotech or pharma industry, pharmaceuticals. First, let's look at biotech. As an industry, biotech is weakening. And I'm now looking at the industry tab. Here the coloring is relative to other industries. If I want to look at the actual percentage change, you can see it was actually up yesterday. So though it is weakening relative to other industry, it is still going up. Robust industry. We can buy in this industry, no harm. And if I want to check the pharmaceuticals industry, that also went up significantly yesterday. So at the industry level, we have a reason to buy the stock. Fundamentally, it is looking very good, and in terms of technicals, it has found great support. If you ran this scan every day, as Q traders tend to do, they are already in the trade on this day, and the stop is just below the recent low. Using the early range breakout technique, the entry would be somewhere here, and if it goes up little bit, I think it will cover the risk distance, and that would be the logical point to book at least partial profit. I open ABBV from my saved code center, ABBV. And now if I want to go to the next stock in the list, I can click this next instrument, which is in both the chart templates, or I could press Alt right arrow. Alt right arrow to go to the next stock, Alt left arrow to go to the previous stock. And this is Apple. Who doesn't know about Apple? Isn't it nice that we could run this simple scan and find Apple right at the point it came to the memory support and started to go up. From which point it started to go up? That was 225. Where is 225 in the daily chart? Let's see the close of this day. It is close of this day 224. And that day close probably just below or at the memory support in weekly. That happened on this day. The traffic light candle color was red, so we were not going to buy on that day using the early range breakout technique, and which would also be a gap long setup technique. We would be entering the long somewhere in the middle of this candle. Our stop would be just below recent low, and we would be in the trend. Technically, this is looking like a good setup when you look at the weekly chart, because in weekly it is still in an uptrend. It came to a robust support and went up from there. And this is what we were looking for, stocks that are at support. Fundamentally, is it very strong? If we use Q Vital, probably not so strong. But then Apple is a very strong stock in terms of brands and adoption and customer following it. Lots of funds are holding this stock, so we may consider buying this stock when it was just going up from the memory support. Let me look at another one, and this came in a different industry, AT&T. AT&T is going up from the watermark support. Some of the memory trend lines may be redrawn, so it is not showing the memory trend line in weekly. Maybe I can check in QLit for AT&T. It's not showing the memory trend line for some reason. Never mind. It went up from the watermark support. Let's look at one more stock then. Let's find another stock which is going up from memory support. Not this one. This one. Okay. HPQ. HPQ also came to a memory support that is coming from far, far away. I think the memory supports are not being drawn because not enough data is being loaded for the weekly interval. But it is coming to the memory support again and going up. Again, where you could buy it right at this point, not now. What was that price level? About 13.8, 13.9. In daily chart, when did that happen? This day closed 14.4. So the entry would be at the close of this day. If one is willing to buy a stock at long-term memory support based on weekly chart, and stop would be just below recent low. And by yesterday, it covered much more than risk distance. Following Q technique, one would book but partial profit and hold on to partial position. Before that, one might look at the fundamentals. Let's spend a few more seconds doing that before we close today. HPQ. HPQ makes money. Earnings per share is positive, has a dividend 3.9%. Technology, hardware industry. Let's check out the industry. Industry is strong, one of the strongest, and we saw this industry earlier also when we looked at Sina accelerating as well, and you saw the fundamentals are pretty good in terms of valuation, good earnings quality, earnings growth is also positive. These are the stocks I like to buy where it is undervalued as well as having earnings growth. This is looking very good as well. And the right time to buy it was at this point, not now. And Q traders, I keep on saying, are active traders, not day traders. Probably none of the regular Q traders are day traders, but they run the scans regularly. And they would be buying the stock right at this point, close of this day, irrespective of whatever be the news. They would apply the 360 degrees technique. Fundamentals were strong. Industry, I don't know how it was at that time, but it may be starting to accelerate at that time itself, and technically it had a buy setup. At 1 hour point, so I would like to close today's session. The market is still in a downtrend. The only trades you may look for are reversal trades which give low risk entry opportunities, like the few trade setups I shared in forum and also in today's session, and you may reduce the position size to minimize risk. That is all that I plan to share in today's session. Thank you for attending. I look forward to seeing you in my next session again. Have a great week, have a great day, and trade profitably.